Okay, so continuing on, taking Barclay Williams' advice on what to do to sort this out. I've taken out the filters and been cleaning them up. I've got a parts washer over there, so with the aid of that and the airline, obviously. This little block here is what sits right underneath. It's one thing I've never actually taken off of the tractor, so there we are, that was a first. Now, so it draws the oil from this hole here to the main hydraulic pumps at the front, and it's drawn through that hole in the centre there, through, and that sits there. And then you've got this in that arrangement like that. And this it's pretty fine. It's quite a fine gauze on it, but nonetheless, it's just a metal gauze. And that's what the oil's drawn through for the hydraulic system. It does later on go through a, I've got that out as well, a pressure filter, which is here. That fits on at the back of the tractor, and it's a proper filter, and that's a pressure filter that sits on the back axle of the tractor, sort of tucked in there. Not very handy to get to. Obviously I've changed them over the years, but I've never actually cleaned this filter up. So there was quite a lot of sort of bits of swarf and tiny little pieces of metal and various other detritus caught in that filter. And then sitting in this sump in the bottom, there was all sort of just really, really fine particles that have just built up over the years. Anyway, it's all cleaned up in there nicely now. I'm very pleased with that. So that sits there. Now this item here, believe it or not, I think I'm correct in saying, is the only filter for that filters the oil for the power shift gearbox. Believe it or not. So this comes up through comes up through this hole here and up and then into the hydraulic pump for the Hydra-shift system. Yeah, tucked up in there somewhere, I have seen it, is the pump that runs this system. Obviously it doesn't run very much pressure, it's running at 90, but nonetheless, this is the only filter for it, which really isn't good enough. But there we are, that's what they put on. So that has all been cleared up as well now. So that's your entire hydraulic oil system, filtration system. You've got the wire gauze on the supply side, and then you've got a pressure filter in the hydraulic system, but nothing, just this for the Hydra-shift. So, like I say, it's probably not really good enough. So that's all tidied up. So I'll probably put all them back and then set about what he suggested in this to do with the bore for the little valve shut, what do they call it? Spool that moves up and down in the that sets the pressure. And once they're back, these filters all back on, I'll do that. That'll probably be next week. Okay, so I'm going to now take this little valve block off here. It's just held on with these two bolts. Obviously you've got to disconnect various pipes to various things. I seem to remember it's all quite straightforward. I might have to undo these little holding things because these will just twist and enable you to get these pipes out. But so I'll drop that off and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got the control valve off, and I've taken out the little spool that controls the pressure. What I am going to do, because I've got the parts manual here, which is very helpful because it shows you a beautiful exploded view. Unlike new tractors, you wouldn't be able to buy that. You can get all these parts individually. If this was a new tractor, well, you probably wouldn't be able to get any of that. You'd probably have to have the whole gearbox, or at the very minimum, that would be one thing, because no one mends anything. So you've got that in my manual here. It's just saying to remove this spool here, take out that which has got the detent ball in it and spring. So we'll take that out, undo that snap ring, and just pull that spool out. And then I'll probably take that off as well, because I think that'll let me get to things a bit more. And then we'll try clearing or doing something in there. Well, I'll probably put it through a parts washer first, get rid of the oil. Then I'll use some stuff I've got to try and polish all that up. And then obviously with this out, I can clean it up again with any thing that's left in there, and put it all back together, oil it, put it all back together. Fingers crossed it'll all work. So let's take this spool out. Right, so the valve's completely in pieces now. That's everything in it. Nice and straightforward. Let's put it like that. You can see how it works because it's mechanical. Unlike a chip where you no idea how it works. So we'll clean all these bits up and inspect them. What I've got, now I actually bought this because I make like model kit, plastic kits, and I bought this little thing here for doing that. It's a little head, it's got a little torch on it and different size lenses that you can slot in. And I bought that to make, to do the plastic model kit stuff with. I use that all the time for all sorts. It's one of the most useful things I've ever bought. It's good for getting splinters out, looking at well, anything close up, but for jobs like this, brilliant. So I reckon I use that more for other things than for what I bought it for. Once I got it, really, really useful bit of or little tool. This one, some of them have batteries, but this one actually charges that battery up with a USB, and it lasts for ages. So yeah, could thoroughly recommend something like that. They're not very much. I think there's about £17 off Amazon, and well worth getting, especially for something like this. So we'll clean it all up and have a look at it. Okay, so now talking to Barclay Williams, we've got the bore that goes through, which is this one here, just there. What he suggested was get some 1200 grade, which this is 1200, wet and dry paper. Get some sort of piece of metal, cut a slot in it, fix some of this in it, sort of wrap it round there somehow so that it fits fairly well in that bore, and then sort of attach it on a drill and just sort of, you know, go in and through, presumably keeping it all wet and nice, and polish up the inside of that bore to super shiny, and then do the same even to this new piece here. He thought that should cure that entirely. So that's now, there's a chap come through or down the farm here. He's done a few Land Rovers up and things like that in his time, and he has got this Clark, it's not got a name on it, but it's got all these brushes with it, and he brought these, he'd said he'd got some 1200 which he bought, but he also bought this down to see if I'd like to use this. Now obviously I'm not going to use these wire brushes, but it's got these nylon-y brushes here, and then he brought some of this paste here, which he said is for you'd sort of use on paintwork, or you know, rubbing down ready for painting. I know Stuart at Barclay Williams has said about using teacup before, which I've got a bit. Well, apparently this is a little bit more than teacup, but not much. So what I think I'm going to try, especially as this, it'll save me fabricating something, I'm going to use this little brush here, which is a 10. I assume that's 10 mil, which seems to fit just about perfectly in that bore, this little nylon brush. And I'll put some of this, I don't know what you call it, cutting compound, stage 1 cut, it says on there. I mean, it's got no it's got some picture instructions, which don't overly make a lot of sense. And I'm gonna put that on there and use that and see how we get on with that, see what that looks like. Because I think that'll probably work quite well, or at least that's what I'm hoping. And then with this, doing this, I'm not sure of whether to perhaps try using the 1000 on it. We'll come to that. But anyway, the bore, we're going to try this stuff. Right, so in the end, I decided not to go with that paste, wherever it is, that cutting paste. And I did make a rod with a slot in the end, and then wrapped some 1200 wet and dry around it, and use that to clean the bore, or to rub that bore down. I've no idea if I've done it enough, hopefully. I also have polished this up a bit with it. So, in theory, it should be okay. So we'll whack that back together. I'll do it now, because I need to put oil on it because it's all been cleaned with the degreaser, so I don't want it to get rusty. The washing thing, you know, whatever you call it. And I'll so put these items back in, and then put it back on and see what happens. Okay, this is working perfectly now, but it wasn't to start with, so I think I've still got to look at it. But now it's working, I think I'll show you. I'll see if I can prop this camera up to show it. No, I can't really get it in there. I'll try and show it from here. So, the front clutch back. Back clutch back. Both clutch back. coming back. And that is how it's supposed to work. And then if you look at the pressure gauge here, it's 90. And then if I put it into third, where it was that's with that back clutch pack working. But it wasn't going earlier, so it's still getting stuck. So I think I need to take it off and look at it again. Right, that's better now, it's a bit quieter. So that was exactly how it should work with the Hydra-shift, with each clutch pack cutting in and out nice and sharply with the pressure reading 90. So as you can see, it works perfectly, but it didn't to start with. When I first started it off, it was obviously still slightly getting stuck. The pressure was higher, but it still wasn't quite right. So I'm going to take... I won't bother filming it because we've already shown what happens, but I'm going to take that valve off again and just try and hone that out a bit more. But basically, as you can see, the thing works perfectly if it once it's decided to move. And I'm sure that's what the problem is. So we'll call that it for this this one, and hopefully that should all be fine.